You're listening to the Multiverse Fan Cast, proud member of the Misfit Faction Media Network.
All right then, on with the show.
Hello and welcome back to the Multiverse Fan Cast. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're glad you're here. Don't forget, though, that you can take us on the go in case you are mobile. With Podbeam, Spotify, Stitcher, Apple Podcast, or any other listening stations, you can also check out our content on the Misfit Faction. Check out some of our reviews, some of our articles, some of our podcasts. We've got some of them up there. We've got not only the Misfit Faction MF Uncensored, but we also have Multiverse. We've got Bibliophiles Assemble. We also have Cinematic Adventures. There's something for everyone on our site, so please come check us out. And also check out our merchandising store where we've got just the fit for you. As always, I'm Rob, and I'm your host today, apparently. And on my right is Ronnie. Hi, Ronnie. How are you today?
I'm doing well, sir. How about you?
Buttery and Beady. How are you? I already asked you that. And on my left, that's not really my left, it's sort of like my 11 o'clock, is Paul. Paul, how are you today?
So amused. So amused. You know, it's funny, Rob. You mentioned our show, MF Uncensored. And for MF Uncensored, we do a lot of interviews, a lot of topical, informational stuff. And normally, I have to do an intro for it because we record months in advance for MF Uncensored, and we'll release it. And I'll usually do like a nice little intro just to say what we're talking about, who we're talking to, plug whatever we're doing, you know, sponsors, et cetera, et cetera. And I sit here and I do it by myself. And normally, like, I stumble through and I take like 17 takes to do it. But just watching you
nailed it in one,
and then use and somehow work in the phrase or the descriptor of being buttery.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it is just.
I feel like he did that like a couple weeks ago too.
Oh, probably.
I also can't make eye contact with Rob while he's trying to script it, and then because Rob has it, we all have a general outline for how we start our shows, right? You know, because we want to give you guys the best product.
Sort of some consistency. Yeah.
But Rob will have his bullet points, and then he'll go off script, and you can tell where it happens. And you know what? I won't bust Rob's chops too much because A, they're probably buttery, but also B, like people don't realize how tough it is sometimes. It's like to do like the stuff because Rob did not know he was hosting until about 14 minutes ago. So thank you, Rob, for starting the episode.
It was. I was told I played some of the audio for a class or two this week, and I was told that not only do I have a real face for radio, but apparently my voice they kind of they dug it. So I'm like, oh, thank you.
I'll fix it in post.
Excellent. So this week. So I should say we are leading up to the season premiere of season 3 of The Boys. And I am super excited. I know Ronnie is super excited. I know Paul is too because it's got Jensen Ackles in it. Yep. It's The Boys. It's just so much fun. And so what we're doing is leading up to it, we are looking at a lot of superhero properties that are similar themed in the sense that they have gore to them, that they are bloody. Because I think we can all agree with this, that the Marvel properties are fairly gore-less. They are, people get shot and they just hold it and there's no blood or anything.
There's been like 3 deaths so far.
It's not much at all. So we thought, with The Boys, and we can also all agree that The Boys is like soaked in blood. Yeah. I mean, it is like I think it's probably is it the bloodiest of all the superhero properties?
It's up there. I remember, you watched the first episode of The Boys, and this isn't a spoiler. We did an episode on season 1 and 2 of The Boys, and we talked about like the very first episode. A-Train runs through a person. That's how that show starts,
and it splatters. Yeah,
and it is just because I know your wife has not watched any of it.
No.
So and she's gonna try and get through some of it.
She wants to watch season 3. So
for Jensen Ackles, we'll all say it. We all man crush on him so hard.
Oh, she's got a huge man crush on him, which I totally acknowledge.
Well, she's a woman crush.
And oh, that's true.
A normal crush.
So let's go with that. But she completely hearts him, and
it's all gushy.
And she would get a pass for him.
My wife does.
Yeah, for Jensen Ackles.
She said I get a pass for him too. I was like, all right, hey,
thank you.
But it's so like Rob said, we're talking about it's almost like a if superheroes were real month for us because we're talking about Super today. We're doing Kick-Ass next week. We have The Boys coming up.
We've got their cartoon Diabolical.
The cartoon version of Diabolical. So like this is the realistic superhero genre almost. Not so much superpowers and glory and all the cool stuff. as much as we love our Marvel and even our DC, and all that stuff, because it's funny, we watched Doctor Strange and like the magic stuff is all blasé that people are like, oh, cool.
Yeah.
But like we're talking about the movie Super today, which is not very super.
And I have to say, I think it's probably one of the very first gore-soaked superhero properties.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not counting things like Blade because that was played straight. This is gore for laughs, and so Kick-Ass and The Boys are all in that same genre. So
Right.
we're looking at that this month. So to introduce it, we're going to start off with Super this week, and we're going to recommend and talk about it and discuss it. And not everyone liked it, but we'll see where it goes. But first, we've got Ronnie with the news.
Yeah.
Who's reading it out of his search bar, I believe.
No, not at all.
Why is that a private window?
I'm just hoping I do this just as well as Rob does.
Is that an OnlyFans you've got there?
Maybe.
Okay.
If you guys want to know, it's only a $2 subscription. No, just kidding.
$1 per foot.
Yep. But to kick things off, so we had the new. No, there's
What?
no.
Sorry.
You want me to hammer this down or not?
We'll fix that in post.
All right. We're talking about Thor: Love and Thunder. So we had
All
a
right.
new little spot for that come out. Thoughts?
I'm gonna go to you first.
Oh, I thoroughly enjoyed it's a brand new trailer. It's setting up a lot of expectations and kind of the general feel for the film. There's some really cool. There's a great shot of
Voldemort?
Voldemort.
He got his nose back.
There's a great shot of Jane using the pieces of Mjolnir.
Yeah.
Like where she like whips the hammer and like all the pieces spread out. So obviously like it shows a little bit more of her, but obviously everybody's talking about the last shot where Thor is completely nude and everybody faints and he's like, "You flick too hard."
Yeah.
And it's everywhere. It's the funniest thing. Good for Chris Hemsworth. I know.
Good for Chris.
Well,
he's another one that the wife gets a pass for.
Oh my God, yeah. But he's also been on record so many times saying how much he hates doing the gratuitous things.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
he hates going shirtless on film. Like he feels that So it's even better because obviously
Because he doesn't want to be like that typecasted where, oh, I need to take my shirt off in order to be like known.
Well, it's funny because Chris Hemsworth's Thor is the only character that I've seen an actor play so many times and then break the typecasting of that
Oh, yeah.
character.
Oh, yeah.
Because like Thor, you watch the first Thor movie, he's very serious.
Oh, he's
Yep.
very Shakespearean.
and then the Thor: The Dark World's even worse.
Oh, yeah.
But then suddenly, Thor Ragnarok rolls around, and then finally in Infinity War they find that balance for
Yeah.
Thor.
Yeah.
So I'm excited for Thor: Love and Thunder.
Rob?
All right. I'm.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
I got. Yeah. Uh-oh is right. The first trailer, I was like, yes, this looks awesome. Second trailer, I loved Gore the God Butcher. Looks amazing. I can't wait to see Christian Bale just kill it. I felt that the trailer was very sitcom-y. Like the jokes of like Jay, the flicking of his clothes, I thought was too sitcom-ish. The humor was not resonating with me at all. It wasn't hitting for me, and I'm like, oh no. So I'm hoping I'm wrong, and I'm hoping it's going to be awesome.
Well, for the most part, trailers are done by an independent company. They're not
usually
done by like
trailer
Zack
houses.
Snyder used to do trailers and like music videos for stuff.
The
but
people that did the first Suicide Squad re-edited the entire movie. It was a trailer house that re-edited the whole movie,
Yeah,
which is why it has that feel.
Yeah.
So I never like. Obviously, trailers are supposed to give you a feel, show you some footage, but they don't give you context.
No.
Or they give you too much in this. Like, they spoiled Batman vs. Superman with the trailers. Like, the second they showed Doomsday in, like, the final trailer,
yeah.
we were all like, oh, well.
Yeah, well, we know.
We know where this is going.
So
Dang it.
I'm hoping this is just a blip on the radar. I'm hoping it's not going to be anything bad, but I'm learning to temper my expectations a little bit.
But also, we talked about the She-Hulk trailer last week, and that is a trailer that did not excite us at all. At least this trailer, it's still, that's Thor, that's the character. There's Korg, there's Jane.
There's Gore.
Yeah.
I'm not excited for Gore the God Butcher.
No?
I like Christian Bale. He looks like he's going to be a scary villain, which is fine, but he is not what I expect. To see that skinny, death-looking little guy going against Thor, the musclest of the gods, and I made muscless the word.
That's what I'm saying. Like, it looks like it's Voldemort going up against Thor.
And B?
Oh yeah,
You said A, so I figured there was a B.
I started thinking about Thor without any clothes on again. Sorry. What about you, Ronnie? What did you think?
So I'm kind of in between both of you,
Okay.
where I'm still excited for it. Some of the jokes didn't land, but I feel like in the situation that it happens in with more context, I think those jokes for the most part, will land. But I'm still not 100% sold on making Thor be like Lebowski. I don't know. There's just something about him being Lebowski-ish that like doesn't sit well with me.
I want some King Thor in this one, like because that was a story in the comics where he does become king, and he like controls the Odin Force and all that stuff. So well, I don't know. I see what you're saying though.
Yeah. All right. So moving on, we have some sad-ish news. Wonder Twins, no mas.
Wonder Twin powers
deactivated.
Yeah, I mean,
were we excited?
There's like not much to talk about. Like I don't know, not really. Like I wasn't like woohoo! I can't wait for this.
So this was like, it was an HBO Max movie, right?
Yeah,
and it was going to go forward, and a movie, not a series.
Yep.
With the Wonder Twins, and I think they even casted it too.
KJ Alpa was the
like it was far along in production, and then they just went.
That means script was done, casting was done. They were going to get
someone came to their senses.
I don't have a problem with the Wonder Twins as characters. I think they're very outdated, and they're also like G-list characters. Yeah. They're more fun when they're playing off the right group, right? You know, if you wanted to do like a Teen Titans and have them cameo in it, like I mean, obviously they have Titans, so that would have been a fun cameo.
They should have put Apache Chief in there.
You know, it's funny. So in Young Justice, they redid Apache Chief, and like he's still a Native American character. He's still, you know, like very in touch with the cultural heritage, and it's like a part of the show. But instead of having him just get bigger, he creates almost like an astral projection form around himself. It's actually really cool.
What are his powers? I know I remember him being able to like get really huge.
That was it. Like he was just able to get bigger.
Oh, he didn't have like animal projections.
I don't think so. But in Young Justice, he has like an actual like astral form that forms around him. It's actually really cool.
Okay.
And they played better homage to it, not even homage, but like just more respectful of the.
Apparently, the only form of water we're going to be getting is the. I don't have a joke. Never mind. Go on.
The tears from our audience.
There's the joke.
So to make things better,
I was hoping the joke would come midway through. It didn't.
Anyway, so good news is we had some set photos from Blue Beetle.
I'm so excited.
I know you are.
I'm so excited.
How excited are you? Tell the fans, tell the listeners.
So we got our first look at Blue Beetle, and normally when you get behind the scenes set photos, especially of costumes, especially if anybody knows Blue Beetle, his costume is very intricate and very like alien and techy, and sometimes it is not good when you see those behind the scenes set photos.
I remember before The Flash came out as a show, Grant Gustin behind the scenes Flash photos came out, and everyone was like, look how stupid he looks. And then it looked just fine.
Yeah. But these set photos came out. There was like two of them, one with the mask on, one without, and he looks fantastic. And the suit looks amazing and very comic accurate. Blue Beetle's one of those characters that got super popular when Jaime Reyes took over. Because originally Ted Kord was the original Blue Beetle, and he was very famous for working with Booster Gold. And they introduced Jaime Reyes. They had him actually on Smallville for an episode. And they did like a very clunky, big Blue Beetle suit. This one looks a lot better. And I'm excited because Rob's giving me like the laugh. Like, why is he not excited?
It reminded me of Nick Cage's Superman outfit.
I don't really see it, but
I am also not the one to ask about this one. This is your area of expertise.
Blue Beetle's another character that Young Justice did a lot of time and devotion to for season 2, and it just I'm excited, and I like the kid who plays him, Zolo. I can't say his last name because I don't want to be disrespectful.
Mariduena?
It's something like that, yeah. But he's from Cobra Kai, and I'm glad he. You know, Jaime Reyes is an interesting character, so I'm excited to see him be brought to the live action.
And our final bit of news, we have some social reactions to Miss Marvel.
Huzzah!
Yeah. I mean, they're all right.
They're calling it unique and charming, playful. Here, watch the first 2 episodes. Stellar cast, wonderful lead. Love the style.
See, I get scared when people use the word unique. Because to me, I feel like a lot of people use unique as like, yeah, it was all right. It was different.
Right, that's a
like it's one of those like backhanded compliments.
It's
almost.
a safe phrase. It's a very safe phrase. I like as much guff as I'm given. Like I'll sit down, I'll watch Miss Marvel, I'll give it a fair shake. Just like Rob and I talked about Moon Knight last. We got to ask Ronnie his thoughts on Moon Knight, but we talked about Moon Knight and we came in very objectively and we kind of left our fandom at the door. I know Rob's a little bit more familiar with Miss Marvel than I am, and he's a fan. And I don't know, Ronnie, do you know anything? Like, are you familiar with Miss Marvel at all?
Just not really, just like the basic stuff that everyday people know kind of thing, but nothing too in depth.
So for me, like for Miss Marvel, I'm just kind of like, I think I'm still jaded from, I just don't like Carol Danvers and Captain Marvel.
That might be it. See, yeah, and this is completely like apart from that because this is apparently what it looks like from the commercials. There, she's a fangirl of Captain Marvel.
So that opens up a whole other issue I have, and this was brought up in Doctor Strange. Like, people know who Doctor Strange is.
Right.
He's like a superhero, like a well-known superhero. I didn't really get that vibe from Carol Danvers because as soon as anything happens, she's like, "All right, gotta go, deuce out," because we don't know how to.
I know.
We don't know how to properly write for her.
So, yeah, I'm looking at a lot of the social reactions. A lot of them are saying delightful. It's rooted in the MCU. They're saying a lot of positive things about the lead. She's a revelation in the role. Irrepressibly bubbly and charismatic. It's a smash, vigor, and overactive imagination. Like, I have to say, I'm excited. And a lot of them citing it's nice to see Muslim representation in the MCU as well, which I think is something that we really haven't seen. So, it's nice to... going back about a year ago, I watched the show Shadow and Bone. I don't know if you'd seen it at all on Netflix.
Kat McNamara is in it.
I forget. And the thing that I loved the most about the series was the authentic diversity to it. Like, it wasn't a forced diversity, because I think we've all seen properties where that's been the case.
Can we leave the CW out of this?
But it was something that it was like, wow, Bridgerton is another one that's got just this huge cast of, multi-ethnic characters, and it doesn't feel forced. It feels natural and it feels lovely and wonderful because everyone brings something to the table. And I feel like that's the case with Ms. Marvel here.
I'll wait till I see it.
Yeah.
I'm going to hold all reservations about it.
Amen to that, brother.
So does that wrap up the news?
That wraps up our news for today.
So I guess before we get into commercial, Ronnie, really quick, the fans are asking, what was your reaction to Moon Knight?
Did not like it.
Okay.
Star City rating 2.5.
All right.
So right average, right down the road.
2.5 is being generous, I think. Would I watch it again? No. Would I recommend it? At this moment, no. Unless something happens in like one of these movies coming up or shows that it's like, oh, now you need to watch Moon Knight. Other than that, not going to recommend it. Yeah. I thought I didn't really like any of the acting in it.
Not even Steven with a V?
Not even Steven with a V.
I'm with him. I was saying this too, that I thought that Ethan Hawke and Oscar Isaac were like just bland.
Yeah. I mean, like, kudos to Oscar Isaac for being able to portray 4 different characters,
Three.
right?
2.5.
Mark 2.1.
Yeah,
I said, I think.
So like, good for him for able to do that, and you were able to tell who was who. When he was supposed to be Steven or Mark or whatever the hell the other one was.
Jacob. Jake Locke.
Jake, yeah. But other than that, like, I was like,
okay. You actually, that's very similar to the reaction that we had too.
Yeah. Except I'll still argue that I loved Oscar Isaac and I love Steven with a V in that.
I love Oscar Isaac. I just didn't love him in this. So that wraps up the news, and that wraps up Ronnie's catching up with Moon Knight. Thanks so much for that. And before we get into Super, let's take a quick break.
Today's episode is brought to you by Raise Energy Drinks from Rep Sports. Whether you're trying to crush your afternoon workout or just need a little extra pick-me-up, Raise Energy is just the boost that you're going to need. So if you go to repsports.com and any product that you order, enter the code MISFIT89 at checkout to receive 15% off. Anything that you guys buy from that store helps our network grow, and we fully appreciate everything you guys do. That's MISFIT89 at checkout, repsports.com.
Welcome back, and thank you for joining us. We are working our way up to the boys in a few weeks, and in order to do that, we are looking at what kind of a role does Gore play in our superhero genre. So let's start off the conversation with that before we get into.
We already went over Thor and Love Thunder.
I was
Not
thinking
Thor. Gore.
Well, isn't Gore the bad guy?
He's
Gore
the God
guy?
Butcher. So here's my question.
Billy Butcher's in this movie?
God, this is why I don't host. This is why we can't have nice things.
What's a toastess?
So the question is, does extreme violence, does
Yes.
gore add or detract from the superhero genre? What do you think, Ronnie?
I think it depends.
Okay.
So it depends on your character that the movie's about. Take Deadpool, Punisher, like those kind of characters, into consideration, and that's what they do, right? They kill people on screen. Mm-hmm. I mean, all superheroes kill people for the most part.
I don't know. Like, not many actually. They neutralize the threat.
I would say they all kill people.
Yeah.
I mean, you might not
That's
see
true.
it, but it's one
did.
of those. I mean, they
weren't-
just dropped that person from 70 feet up
That's
in
true.
the
They
air.
weren't neutralizing the Chitauri. They were actually
Yeah.
throwing them into the ground.
Well, in all honesty, superheroes, when they first came out, were exceptionally violent. Superman and Batman killed a lot of people. It is until more recently, especially with the 90s, where they had the really angsty, very aggressive superheroes like Wolverine, the Punisher. They all became very popular in the late 80s, early 90s, that anti-hero.
in the comics,
In the
right?
comics. So in comics, like, Superman and Batman did kill in their very beginnings. Like, Superman was throwing people through walls that they, like Ronnie said, they wouldn't survive. Batman, notoriously, he used a gun at one point. Like, a lot of those quote-unquote rules of superheroes are much more recent additions.
Yes.
Especially once the comic code became enforced. So for those of you guys who don't know, which most of you guys probably do, the Comics Code Authority was an unofficial stamp of approval that comics had to get in order to be publicated, because the government publicated. I know. I meant to say published,
started
but
smiling at that.
I went to say published, but
Publicated.
Yeah, publicated.
All right.
In order to be published.
I'm hoping to publicate my book sometime in my life. Yeah.
Yep. It's called How to Host a Podcast. Yeah, but it's going to be publicated any day now. So what happened though was, because of, just the same controversy that we deal with nowadays, are video games too violent, are TV shows too violent, movies too violent? There was originally a question about whether comic books were corrupting the youth. So here's a perfect example. The new season of Stranger Things came out.
I was just going to bring that
and
up.
in the very first episode, they're reading, and this isn't a spoiler or anything. If you guys have seen Stranger Things, you know that the kids play Dungeons and Dragons in it. And one of the characters that they introduce is reading an article from the New York Times or the New York Post, whatever it was.
Time Magazine. I
Time
think.
Magazine.
Or Newsweek, one of those two. Yeah.
It was a news publication where it was publicated. And
Getting lost in the weeds here, sorry.
yeah. So, and he's reading an article about how Dungeons and Dragons is like considered demon worshipping, and is it corrupting the youth? And there will always be those things. So comic books were an easy target because kids loved them.
Yeah.
They were big, especially post World War II. Like, they were used as war propaganda for a long time. So basically what happened was, when the Comic Code Authority came out, it was to placate parents who were like, I'm not letting my kid buy this now. And it was never an official government regulation or anything like that. It was just comic books weren't published without it. And it wasn't until, I want to say,
they weren't publicated.
They weren't publicated at all.
Yeah, the Comics Code started in September of 54.
Yeah. So post World War II, after they were, after the propaganda died down and people wanted to go back to the quote unquote American values and make things normal again, what happened?
It actually only ended in 2011.
Yeah, officially, yeah.
Yeah.
The first comic book that did it without the Comic Book Code Authority, I want to say, was an issue of Green Arrow where Roy Harper is a junkie in it.
Yeah.
So if I'm mistaken, please correct me, because that's just interesting history.
Yeah.
So it leads up to this conversation, right? Is violence a part of superheroes, and how far does it go before it becomes gratuitous, right? And I agree with Ronnie. I think it depends on the character and also the media that you're watching.
But yet we can also all agree that The Boys is gratuitous in its gore.
And I think
but
that
it services the property too.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think I've mentioned a few times that I really want to do a podcast episode about how terrible it would be if superheroes actually existed. I think The Boys is the most realistic depiction of such a thing. And, as much as we all love superheroes to different degrees in the show, obviously we're here doing a podcast about it, I think we all kind of agree that having superpowers in real life would suck.
It's terrifying. Oh yeah.
The idea, like Brightburn, which is another James Gunn, it's a superhero horror movie basically.
Yeah. So we've got, there are, and I think what you kind of went through with the comic code goes through pretty much every form of media. I can remember, Tipper Gore and her crusade to label music and put parental advisory warnings on it. I was alive. I know you it was before you guys, but I very vividly remember the Dungeons and Dragons stuff. That, I can remember my mother asking me about, did I ever play it? Do I have friends that play it? Please stay away from it. It's too dangerous.
Well, we were the Grand Theft Auto generation.
That's right.
Yeah. Like that.
and the Matrix generation
too. The Matrix generation too.
And that is always a concern of how much does media play in our sort of belief systems and our practices for life. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if I just know that, I've gone, and I always cite this. I remember back in 1993 when I saw the movie Days of Thunder with Tom Cruise, and I saw it in the movie theater, and not a single car, every car leaving that parking lot peeled out. And that always made me believe that, there's a definite connection there. Now, is it a connection enough to cause someone to, to take the wrong actions in their own hands?
It's always going to be a debate. Yeah. But I mean, look at the Fast and Furious franchise. They put they had to start putting warnings.
Did they really?
There's a
I've
warning.
never watched any of them, so I don't
After
know.
the second Fast and Furious, I think, car accidents started going through the roof, and drag racing started to become more popular again. So now if you watch Fast and Furious, there's a warning saying these are all done prep. Jackass, look at Jackass. Jackass is the perfect example of these guys got famous doing stupid crap. The amount of stupid, and nowadays it's how do I become internet famous? Yeah. Everybody wants to become internet famous. We want to have a successful podcast.
Absolutely.
So I think that the media does have correlation to the way that people view the world, because in all honesty, I mean, we had an interview with Neil Getzlow on our show MF Uncensored, one of our first interviews, and he talks about his addiction to pornography. Pornography is under scrutiny because it supposedly creates this unrealistic expectation of how physical intimacy works. Yeah. It could be true, it could not be, but again, it's the things that we see on television and in the movies do impact the way, and that's why I like movies like this. I like this movie Super. I love the movie Kick-Ass, which we're going to talk about.
Yeah, that's next week.
It's these, and The Boys, and that's why we like The Boys, because it's a real, I hate to say it, it's realistic.
It is. Yeah. And I think that'll probably take us into our discussion of the movie Super, because I think Super is a fairly realistic portrayal of what would happen if someone just kind of snapped one day and wasn't too good at being a vigilante and just kind of went off on a spree. So give us a little bit of background about Super. Who wants to tackle that?
I got this.
Yeah, all right.
So
I want to see if you leave something important out, though.
Super, like Rob said, it's a story about this average fry cook, and basically he's living...
Now, when did this movie come out?
This movie came out in 2010.
Yes.
This movie's 12 years old, and it's a very low-budget James Gunn production. This is before James Gunn was James Gunn. If he wanted to redo this movie now, it would be...
and this is James Gunn. He had really only done a couple things beforehand. He did Slither, which is actually I don't know if you've seen it. It's one of my personal favorites. And he also used to do a lot of stuff with Troma. If you're not too familiar with Troma is a studio conducted by Lloyd Kaufman for years, and it's a lot of really low budget horror that is also really goofy and no holds barred. Toxic Avenger came out of Troma. So James Gunn's really his first film that he ever did was called Tromeo and Juliet, and it's tasteless, it's violent, it's totally inappropriate. And then he did Super a couple of years later, and that's where we're at now.
Yeah. So Super stars Rainn Wilson. This is kind of I don't know. Is this before The Office? Or?
He had just started doing The Office.
I like Rainn Wilson, and I think he's funny, and obviously, he was iconic for his role in The Office, but he doesn't play the same type of character in this, which is nice. But he plays a fry cook who's living just your average American life, nothing extraordinary. He's a loser, and that's where James Gunn kind of thrives with the mismatch, the misfits. He does a really good job at making them into quote unquote heroes. And he meets Liv Tyler's character Sarah, who gets a job at the restaurant where he's working at, and she's a recovering addict. And eventually she does relapse, and Kevin Bacon's the bad guy in this.
Oh, yeah.
Which is crazy. And he plays Jacques.
You're correct.
Originally supposed to be played by Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Yeah, and he ducked. Yeah, Kevin Bacon came in 10 days before that they were supposed to start shooting because Jean-Claude was like just too fickle, and James Gunn didn't want to gamble on him or anything.
No, and basically Liv Tyler's character relapses, goes back to her drug dealer who takes her in, and it's like Rob said, Rainn Wilson's character Frank snaps, and he decides to become he has a vision. By Nathan Fillion. So Nathan Fillion's in this and he plays the Holy Avenger, which is like a televangelist kind of like.
Well, it's a play on. Are you familiar with the comic book character Bible Man?
Yes.
Okay, so it's a play on Bible Man, and that's typical James Gunn. James Gunn loves to poke his finger in the eye of like pretty much anyone who's in front of him, and yeah, he does Bible Man, and that's also James Gunn playing the Satan-like figure in a lot of the film in the Bible movie kind of clips.
Yeah,
he gets this vision.
And Frank decides he's going to become a vigilante called the Crimson Bolt. And without giving obviously full spoilers, but
for a movie that came out 12 years ago.
You know what? I think Ronnie saw it for the first time this week.
He thinks.
I think.
You want to explain that?
So have you ever watched a movie that you're not sure you've seen before, and you're watching and you're like, that looks familiar. This is going to happen next. And it does. And then you're like, huh. And then later on in the movie, you're like, oh, I feel like this is going to happen if I remember correctly. And it doesn't happen. So it's like one of those where it's like some things I remembered but didn't remember. Or is it just some things I predicted and didn't predict correct? And I don't know. I was super confused if I ever saw it.
I encouraged Ronnie to start writing down the movies he's seen, so that way he can be for. I have an Letterboxd is the big thing nowadays.
Yeah.
I have a Letterboxd account if anyone wants to follow. I think it's RM Loalbo, and I post just star ratings for any and I have a diary up there for everything that I watch. So I would encourage you to do that.
Oh, absolutely. And so basically, Frank, he does actually do some decent work. He beats up drug dealers, child molesters.
So the body count on this film is 19, according to IMDb. And out of those 19, I think he's responsible for 18 of them. Is that right? Do I have that right?
I think the only one he doesn't.
Oh no, he's not. No, the cop. Right.
The cop is one.
And
Libby.
Libby.
And
okay,
Libby.
so
Spoiler.
two. So he's spoiler. So he's responsible for 17 of them.
Actually, no. Because Libby kills.
No, she doesn't kill him.
So let's also talk about Libby really quick. Elliot Page plays Libby. We are going to do our very best with the proper pronouns because obviously at the time Elliot Page was Ellen Page and Libby is a female character. So we're going to do our best. We're not trying to be disrespectful or anything, especially for some of the context of scenes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We may have to refer to Elliot Page as, female. So
I'm on a side note, I'm very because she's in the Umbrella Academy, and
they are addressing it in this season.
Season 3, she's in it, and she was still, I believe, when season 2 came out, she was still Ellen, and she was still identified as a female.
I think parts of season 3 still Ellen Page, and then I'm during the transition.
It'll be interesting to see how they handle that because I think we need as a society to start addressing a lot of these things that are so. That's someone's lifestyle, and we want to respect it. So,
So as we go through the movie and kind of the things that we like and don't like, because there is a very controversial scene involving Elliot Page, and which we're going to address, not within too much detail, but just because, unfortunately, movies, even 12 years ago, this movie came out, times are different, and things were, and this movie, for all of its, obvious, mild spoiler for Ronnie's opinion, he was not impressed by this movie. I thoroughly enjoy this movie, mostly because I do enjoy the realistic superhero movies because they changed my perspective. Yeah. They really did. Movies like this, Kick-Ass, they made me see superheroes very differently. Oh, yeah. And Rob's obviously a big James Gunn fan.
Oh, huge.
And this is a James Gunn movie.
Oh my gosh. So in watching this, it really helps. And this is the third time I've seen it. And I will say every time I watch it, it appreciates a little bit more. But it also disturbs me more how much James Gunn is messed up. He is not well. He's and it's fine. You do you, but it's very funny that so much has changed in the past few years. I mean, I'm thinking about Jimmy Kimmel, if you remember, used to do a Carmel impersonation in blackface, and at the time when he did it, we all laughed. There were, I'm sure, some people that found it offensive, but now it's become offensive societally, and so we've had to rethink how we do things. And he has since apologized for doing that,
and that's fine. Like I have no problem, if you're speaking during the times of where it's socially acceptable. Like here, perfect example: Bill and Ted. We all love the movie Bill and Ted.
Right.
Nobody hates Bill and Ted. Does it make sense in terms of story? Not particularly. No. Does it play with the law of history? A little bit. There is one scene in Bill and Ted that no matter what, whenever I watch it on TV, they usually cut it out if it's on public. And Bill and Ted hug each other, and then they back off and they call each other the F word. I don't want to say it because I don't feel comfortable, but
gay slur.
A gay slur. And back then that was totally normal.
No, I saw that in the theaters, and none of us blinked at it.
And people laughed. That was other words. Like the slang for mentally challenged. That was a big thing. And we here at the show, we understand product of the times, right? James Gunn has apologized for, everybody remembers his big Twitter meltdown, not even like just. Well,
they came across an old tweet of his where he made a joke of a pedophile.
They came across a few tweets by him, but like other actors too, same thing. The guy who played Elongated Man on The Flash, he got kicked off, he got fired from the show because of some of his more recent tweets. And that's the problem with social media. It gives everybody a voice.
I think that's the problem is, there's nothing wrong with saying, wow, I did that in the past. I want to be better. That's great. I think it's, when you're doing recent stuff and, you're being called out for it, that's a problem.
And also there's an issue of dirty laundry, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes if I made a mistake 10 years ago and I've worked on it privately and become a better person, and now like I see things differently, nobody would bat an eyelash. But it's once that is like shown, nobody knows the work that I did, the effort I put in.
The thing is, we are in a society right now where cancel culture has taken us over, where people across the country can cancel me for something I said 10 years ago, yet the people close to me know that's not me. Mm-hmm. Like that's what like boggles my mind, is just these people that don't know me are trying to cancel me for something I said 10 years ago, but the people around me know, no, that's not him. Like, yeah, he said that. Yeah, he was like that. He made that stupid comment, but he's not like that now. And they don't care about that.
Right. So, thankfully, James Gunn is not getting a lot of flack for Super.
Yeah,
it is what it is. It's I would like, full spoilers for this, but I would recommend this film, and I think it's hysterical and it's worth watching. But I think it's not for everyone, and it's definitely got some dated jokes to it.
If you like Peacemaker, you'll like this. This is a very I can see the Crimson Bolt and Peacemaker teaming up.
So that's what I wanted to ask for you guys is, in light of having seen Peacemaker recently, did that alter how you viewed this film? Because I got a lot of Peacemaker vibes.
Yeah, well, you know what it is? James Gunn has a very distinct fingerprint. Like, you watch his movies, there are certain things this movie was unique in a James Gunn movie where it doesn't have the killer soundtrack.
Now, I do want to say this. If you're like, oh, James Gunn, that nice Guardians of the Galaxy guy, I think I would like to watch his stuff. That's almost like if you're like, oh, Bob Saget on Full House, he's such a nice guy. I bet his comedy is just as nice.
That is like,
no, it's not.
That is the perfect analogy.
If you know James Gunn from only Guardians of the Galaxy, you don't really know him. He is gloriously offensive. Peacemaker, I think, really challenged that. And, a lot of his stuff is Guardians of the Galaxy was James Gunn with a leash on. It was definitely reining him back. So, don't think that, this is going to be the same thing.
If you want James Gunn Guardians of the Galaxy, watch Scooby-Doo. He did. And you know what? In all honesty, I will defend those Scooby-Doo movies to death. I've love them.
Scooby-Doo Unleashed, baby.
The second one is fantastic. But anyway, so
but
I do agree. Peacemaker. And we did a great episode on Peacemaker. I think the general consensus was we enjoyed it. But Rob had trouble getting through the first two episodes. Not because of content, but because it's just too much.
Yeah, it's a lot.
This movie there are scenes that are too much. So let's discuss.
So,
we-
yeah, go
he
ahead.
takes
You wanna
he
take-
takes Libby on. Libby is a character played by Elliot Page. Takes them on. We'll go with them for the sake of conversation, as a sidekick, a reluctant sidekick, Bolty.
Like
Yeah,
Robin.
Yeah. One of the most realistic superhero scenes of all time, though, is them just sitting around going, well, what do you do?
Yeah.
So boring.
Boring. She's got the
But wait-
toothpick in her mouth.
Because if anybody knows me and they know what my profession is, it is a lot of sitting around and waiting. You would think, like, it's like watching Batman and Robin sitting in the Batmobile just having coffee. Like, just waiting.
It's what happens in between the
The
panels.
panels.
You know,
So
it's,
are we in between the panels
So-
right now?
Rainn
Should've been the name of the
Wilson's
show.
character, as Paul was saying, he gets his wife taken away from him, and he gets a sort of touched by the finger of God in the weirdest superhero origin moment I think ever, because I don't know if you made the connection. A few minutes beforehand, he's flipping
Watching
through the
Christian
channel.
TV.
Well, he's flipping through, and before that, he comes across
Yeah.
tentacle porn, which is strange and weird. And if you don't know what that is, ask a grown up or look it up. I'm not answering that one. So he then gets these tentacles coming at him, and it lobotomizes him.
it's very
Yeah.
strange.
And it's graphic too.
It's so James Gunn. There's a lot of graphic in this. If you guys
I'm
have
sorry,
soft
but
stomachs,
I love that part.
You love
where they squirt like the ketchup on. They got the corn dog.
and then they wipe his brains just so it could prepare it for God.
Yeah, it was like a corn dog they used.
Yeah, and then he decides to become this superhero known as, like you said, the Crimson Bolt. And he doesn't really know what to do. He just knows to dress up, have a superhero. Like, he does research. He has a superhero costume, and his
great.
weapon of choice
is a
Pipe
wrench.
is a pipe wrench. And I should point out that it is spray painted red at the top too. And he just goes up. He looks for crime, and then he beats people with a pipe wrench. That's his superpower.
I love
Right
that
up
scene
there
where
with
he's at the
Dog
comic
Welder.
book store.
Yeah.
And he's talking to Elliot Page's character, Libby. And he's like, so what superheroes fight crime without any superpowers? And she's going through and she's like, Batman. You know, she was like, Green Arrow. You got Iron Man. But he's got like a super suit, so maybe not. And then it goes off in that thing. No, I shouldn't have even brought that up.
And also in the comic book shop, did you see him in the background there? What's his name from Peacemaker?
Nathan, no.
No, Steve Agee.
I don't know the name off the top of my head.
Oh, Steve Agee, who in
Who does he play?
Peacemaker. It's hard to recognize him. In this, he's just like a snarky.
Oh, he plays Economos.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
He's the snark in this movie. He's a snarky comic book customer.
no, that's funny.
When he goes the first time.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, and he does show up
Oh, that's
again
right, he's
later.
in the second,
Yeah.
yes.
But yeah, that's what's wonderful about James Gunn is he has his regulars. You know, Michael Rooker,
Michael Rooker's
Sean
in this.
Gunn,
Nathan Fillion.
Fillion, and he's a close knit group that they really hang out.
Like Adam Sandler.
So he decides to go out and he fights crime, but he's not very good. It's essentially answers the question: what would happen if an angry, really not well adjusted, and inept person decided to become a superhero?
You know what I find interesting about that, though, is that he doesn't sustain a whole lot of like injury. Like you watch like Kick-Ass. Kick-Ass, he gets hospitalized his first
Oh,
time
yeah.
trying to do this. Like,
Which is one of my gripes with this. When he first sees Sarah with Jock, and he's banging the car, he's like, "Don't touch my car again." He pokes it,
And he's like, "That's not the kind of touch I was
he pokes
referring
it
to."
again. I'm just out of here. That's not what I meant. And then he jumps on it, and he gets his butt kicked.
but he's fine.
But he's got like some like marks and bruises. But like, dude's got pummeled in the face at least 10 times. You're telling me there's no cut?
Yeah, there's not a lot.
Like-
it's mild. It
Yeah.
really you don't really see him starting to sustain injuries until he gets shot.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's at that point then he shows up on Elliot Page's doorstep and saying, "I need your
The
help."
garbage bags.
In the garbage bag. I have to say, I've always been kind of lukewarm about the movie until Elliot Page shows up, and then it just flies.
Libby
for
brings
me.
the movie to a different level.
She is. And I'll get your reactions too on this. I have to say, Elliot Page is just working on another planet, and I think this is his best work.
Oh,
in
absolutely.
everything.
Yep.
If you like Ellen/Elliot Page at all for anything that because he's also done Juno, he's done a lot of other
The
stuff.
opposite of Juno.
This is watching Elliot Page is the best thing of this movie. Everything, because it's also not only is he completely bonkers and just dorky.
You would say
and
Elliot Page, his Libby as a character is crazier than Frank.
yes,
Yeah.
and that's what makes it great. Bolty or Libby.
Bolty, yeah.
Bolty and Libby play so well off of Frank and the Crimson Bolt.
There is nothing better than the scene. So basically, Libby convinces him to let her, be the sidekick, be the partner.
Yeah.
And they go after a guy that might have keyed somebody's car. And then Libby tells him afterwards, "Oh, I think so."
Yeah.
And he's like,
Yeah.
"How can I tell crime to shut up
yeah.
if I have to shut up?"
But even better was like the whole time she's like, Frank. He's sitting there and he's like, "Stop, don't come in." And she's like, "But Frank."
My favorite scene with Libby is when Libby is in the car and rams Sean
Yes.
Gunn's legs, and she's in her bra,
Yeah.
and she's like jumping around outside of the car screaming, I got you, Eddie, and she's throwing out all these like horrifically like insulting
Yeah.
curses at him and everything, and it's just glorious that
Yeah.
that Libby is doing that. She's an amazing character, and it really is
But
a
let's-
testament to Elliot Page's work.
Let's talk about there is one scene in this movie that has not aged well. It was controversial probably at the time too. So Libby falls for Frank during the course of all this,
Right,
And,
it's I think it's more about the
the
fangirlish.
excitement. So basically, the Crimson Bolt becomes a media sensation. First, the media.
Let's temper that, quote unquote, local media.
Local media,
sensation.
but like the media is kind of like, this guy's crazy, he's terrible,
Right.
but the public adore him. Like they're like, oh, like it's a very interesting commentary, especially nowadays. What would happen if somebody actually became this vigilante and was
he goes after someone who was, it turns out, had a criminal record.
every
someone
person
who
he went after
Yeah.
turned out to be some sort of by accident.
by accident.
Yeah.
Even the guy apparently who cut him in line at the movie
Yeah.
theater, who he pummels in the forehead with a wrench, and I think kills him.
Oh yeah, that skull got collapsed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so Libby becomes infatuated and caught up in the whole world. And obviously Libby's character is not mentally well in this. Like Libby's broken too.
Yeah, I think
This
everyone is.
This is the movie about broken people, and Libby
Which is a James Gunn film, pretty
Libby,
much.
unfortunately, there is a scene where Libby sexually assaults Frank.
Yeah, she rapes him.
And he doesn't want to hurt her. He doesn't want to fight her because, she's a girl. And, it's a hard scene to watch, especially nowadays. And
It has that early Sean Gunn ick factor to it.
yes. And it's the only scene in this movie. And this movie has some very big violence. The ending of the last third of this movie is pure violence.
Oh my gosh.
I would still tell people, if you get squeamish about certain things, that's the scene that comes to mind.
Yeah. I was listening to a podcast before I came here, and they said it's essentially Scott Pilgrim meets Travis Bickle from Taxi Driver.
Yeah.
And that's a pretty accurate
It's a very
representation. Because like Travis Bickle, he is someone who, and I have to say, it actually follows a lot of the same beats of Taxi Driver, where it's an individual who has a skewed sense of reality, but still wants to do good in the universe. Like in the beginning of this movie, you see he's got his two perfect moments in Cran up on the wall. One is when he married Sarah. The other one is
The hands were too big.
but the hands are too big. There's so many great throwaway lines in this. And the other one is when a cop was looking for a bad guy and he said, "He's in there, officer,"
Yes.
and he solved that crime. And that's really all you need to know about Rainn Wilson's character, Frank, is that he loves his wife and he wants to stop crime. And from there, that's the rest of the movie.
I can't relate at all, but anyway. So we're past that scene. Like it's over, but he does have a revelation after that scene, and in one of the most realistic responses too. He gets very violently sick, and he doesn't know that's also the scene that I hate watching just because I hate vomit. But
I'm not a vomit fan myself.
he has the revelation that he is now ready to go take on, and the last third of this movie is them going to. Do they say where this movie takes place?
No.
Is it
I
like-
always felt it was like Wisconsin. Or
Yeah, very
something.
like
something like that.
very like there's a farm over there type place.
Yeah.
And they arm up because this is America, and it's a great montage of the two of them.
Yep.
And despite the fact that like he shouldn't be okay hanging out with her right now,
There's
they
a
still,
lot of inappropriateness in this. Yeah.
So they go on a shopping spree and they decide they're ready to take on the bad guy. And it's if you guys like Peacemaker and you guys like the Punisher or Daredevil, those Punisher and Daredevil, they actually have philosophical debates about the use of violence against and how far is too far and what the line is. There's a great scene in Daredevil season 2 where him and Frank are on the rooftop talking about, I don't kill people, but I do, and it's the right, it saves people. Whatever, that we had that discussion during our Netflix episode, but
Shreveport, Louisiana.
oh,
is where
okay,
this takes
okay,
place.
okay, we get it. Not a whole lot of Cajun accents. I'm kind of disappointed.
No, it's Shreveport.
But anyway, so without obviously we said spoilers. We're gonna say it. He does rescue Sarah,
Yeah.
and like the bad guys are taken down. Unfortunately, Libby dies in the process. Which again, there's your realistic.
And I think that's the thing that I love about this film is the arc that violence takes, where in the beginning when he's beaming people in the forehead with this, we're like, oh my God, that's horrible and shocking. And then by the end, we're rooting for pipe bombs to blow people up.
It shows that sense of disconnect when it comes to superheroes and superheroics. Like, we know those are the bad guys.
Mm-hmm.
They're drug dealers. But like, he's beaming a guy that cut him in line. We're like, I've cut people in line before. Yeah, if somebody walked up to me and hit me in the head with a wrench because I cut in line, like, I feel like that's a little misproportionate to what just happened. But but that's
Depends on the movie.
but that's the commentary, right?
Yeah.
That's the character. At the ending, though, we're rooting for him because also Kevin Bacon's character is a terrible person.
Oh, yeah.
He runs strip clubs and he's giving drugs to Liv Tyler.
And he's shooting everyone that he knows just
Yeah.
because he's annoyed with them.
But the most realistic part of this movie, and the part that actually I like the most, is that Frank he gets a happy ending that he didn't realize he wanted, because he does save her name, Sarah, but then Sarah, and again the most realistic thing is Sarah stays with him for a couple of months and then realizes that she was with Frank because he was safe and because he took care of her and he was there for her, and she realizes that they're not in love. Like, Frank just loves the idea of her. And they separate, and she goes and she marries somebody else and lives a happy life, and
4 kids, and
and she overcomes her addiction, and she's helping other people, and Frank gets to like be part of that life.
he's
still.
Uncle Frank.
And I think that is not only the most realistic ending, but also I applaud any movie. Happy endings are the thing we all want. We all want happy endings. A lot of movies are rewritten for the ending. The ending is always the thing that studio test audiences hit first. And I think that this movie's ending actually is my favorite part.
I think that's what's amazing about James Gunn is that he takes, because in the beginning we don't like Frank at all. We're like, this guy is weird. He's a reject. James Gunn is able to take these individuals. I mean, that's what Peacemaker was, that are so loathsome, but not bad. They're good people, but they're just like complete outcasts and rejects, and he makes us care deeply about them. Like, I never thought I would care so deeply about like John Cena's Christopher Smith or Freddie Stroma's Adrian Chase, where I have a real affinity for those characters, even though they're loathsome and they're not people you want to know. Rainn Wilson's Frank he's a weird fry cook that is really maladjusted, and there's nothing likable about him, but we care about him by the end, and we feel good about him when we see him looking at his wall of excellent moments from life, and we're like, we feel something for that. That's incredible. I have to think that James Gunn must identify with these people. That, even Guardians of the Galaxy, they're all rejects too. But we care about a trash raccoon
and a tree.
and a tree.
Now, I got a question.
Okay.
How does a waitress and a fry cook afford that house?
They were renting.
Solid answer. I can't even argue it.
My statement
I
still
don't know.
stands?
I don't know. Why was it? Was it a big? I don't remember.
I mean, you see it from the outside, and it looks like a decent
because
size.
it's Shreveport.
Well, that's where it
There's
was
my
filmed.
answer.
It was filmed in Shreveport. It didn't take place.
That's true. We don't know where it took place.
That's
Still,
depending. I mean, the salary I make right now, I could afford a mansion in Texas.
Yeah.
In New York, I'm
A
very
cardboard
lucky.
box.
300 square feet.
Waiting for
Yeah.
that housing market to crash. Yeah,
The
waiting.
bubble will burst.
Patiently, I have my house. I'm patiently waiting. Patiently waiting. But
Yeah, so it's so let's talk about what's our reactions overall to this.
Do you wanna
film.
do Star City
you
ratings with
wanna-
that? Yeah.
Why don't we do that? So I know, Ronnie, you are on the fence with a lot of this stuff. So tell us about what are your final thoughts on and Star City ratings.
and
for
did
Super-
our discussion change your
Yes.
initial
Did
response?
it
Because you
sway?
came in pretty cold about this movie.
The answer to your question is no.
Okay.
Okay, so we didn't.
You
Sway.
guys suck. I'm just kidding. No, because okay. So
Let me go to my other two podcasts. Sorry.
So, going into our discussion, I didn't. The movie wasn't a good movie, but it's one that I would watch again and I would recommend.
Box office is $420,000.
Yes.
It did not do well.
No.
And to be honest with you, if I paid money to see this, I would be upset.
Would you have cut somebody in line?
I would have. No.
To leave.
To leave? Yeah.
To leave, yeah.
Is that a thing? My Star City rating for this is a 3.
Solid, despite what you just said. Wow.
Well, because
Well, he would still recommend it.
Yeah,
so
no,
three is a
I'm
recommendable-
surprised. I thought this was going to be a two
to
and a
me,
half.
a movie has to be a 3 or higher in order to be recommended. You know, there are some exceptions, like, hey, you want to watch a crappy movie? That's a 2. Watch this movie. But I give this a 3. There are some solid moments in it. It does give us some light to what superheroes would be like in real life. You know, if they had like a bipolar complex to them, but not necessarily like a everyday person. But you know, there's just the cast is great in this. You know, from top to bottom, everyone's great. I just think there was just it just didn't hit for me. Like some of the humor was forced in this. Some of it just didn't make sense.
Can
and
you think of
everything.
any specifics on that one?
What things that don't make
Yeah,
sense?
didn't make sense or didn't resonate with you.
I would say the whole pipe wrenching.
Okay.
I think, you know, at times did he do the right thing
By accident.
as far as like beating people? Yes, you know, like the one that was about to molest a child,
Don't molest
or whatever.
kids.
Like that one I get, but someone that's selling drugs, do you really need to kill them with a pipe wrench? No. I don't think you need to kill
You think
them.
there's
I mean,
some reform?
incapacitate them and then, you know, like citizen's arrest or whatever kind of thing. Somebody that cuts in line, do you really need to crack their skull?
But haven't
No,
you ever
but then-
felt like that though?
Yes, but also the fact that he cracks the guy's skull and then the girlfriend, wife, friend, whoever it is like, whoa, calm down.
And then
he
doesn't
just
yeah.
whacks her and it's like, for what reason?
Because he's clearly not in his right mind.
Yeah.
I wonder how much of this takes place in his head.
Oh,
To be honest with you, that's what I thought was going to happen at the end. Like this
Really?
was
I
all
never
just
even
in his
enter-
imagination.
I never entertained that thought. You think that could be some?
Well, I mean, you just said it. We've all had those thoughts. Like we all have that coworker we don't like, or that
the
bad
the
day.
person that you just want to strangle who's talking in a movie theater.
and you like always imagine like what would there's a movie Horrible Bosses,
Oh yeah, I
Love
remember
that.
that.
and there's a great scene where he fully fantasizes about throwing his boss out the
Yeah.
window, and we've all been there. And I think obviously we're well adjusted, quote unquote, normal people.
Yeah, let's talk about superheroes in our 40s.
I know, right? But in 30s. But everybody has those thoughts, and then it's the action you take afterwards that determine if you're a good person. Like human interaction and human nature is very strange,
Yeah.
right? People have been doing philosophy on it. I almost said philosophizing, and I already did publicating, so
Publicating.
I decided against it. But now I'm going to make a joke out of it before I accidentally say
I'm
it.
going to publicate a philosophized
I
book.
mean, I was philosophizing about all this, right?
Yeah.
People have been talking about, there's no answer, right?
Right.
For human nature, you could, trillions of books, trillions of lectures, trillions of people trying to figure out how people do what they do. I would not be surprised if this whole movie took place in his head and it was just his wife
So
left
sort
him.
of a Joker kind of situation there with the relationship with the girl down the
Exactly.
hall. All right.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised. And I think if there's an alternate ending out there somewhere, I could see that.
All right. So carry on, Ronnie.
Oh no, so I just think that this movie's a 3. I would recommend and I would watch it again.
Okay. All right. That's solid. Paul?
I give it a 3.5. Like Ronnie said, it is something that if you're a superhero fan, you've probably seen it. If you're a James Gunn fan, you definitely saw it.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen it and you enjoy your superhero movies and you want a non-conventional superhero movie, this is a solid choice. If you like movies like Kick-Ass, or if you like characters like the Punisher or Wolverine even, people tend to forget that Wolverine's killed a lot of people. Like in
Berserker
X2,
mode.
in X2, he levels the entire, bad guy list. Like, he's constantly killing people. So for me, I give it a 3.5. It is like a superhero movie that, like, if you've never seen a superhero movie, I'm not gonna be like, here, start here. But it's a solid choice, and I enjoy it. And yeah, I think.
Okay. So I am also actually echoing your 3.5. It's a definite recommend for me. It is unique. It is different. It is not like any other superhero movies that I'm really familiar with. If you want just, cookie cutter, factory made superhero movies, this is not for you at all. This is different. It's funny. I will say that the first half hour for me is a little touch and go, where I think it struggles to find its it struggles to find its tone a little bit. Once Elliot Page comes on, it just flies. I laugh out loud so many times with
Almost
so
like
many
a genre
things.
flip.
Yeah.
It goes from like sad and depressing to
and
a lot of
it
fun.
is like he's such a sad character, like, and he's self-deprecating. Like, doesn't he have like a little speech about like kids in Africa or something like that?
Something like that,
Where he's like, at least their parents love them. Like, it's just brutal. And he feels so bad for himself. And seeing his journey towards the end is kind of fun. Like, seeing that character arc of him just being this completely horrible, this person that is so self-hating to somebody that actually likes himself. Even though Sarah doesn't stay with him at the end, he's still like, you know what, I saved her, and she went on to do great things.
He was a hero.
And he was a hero. Yeah, he was.
He was her hero.
Yeah, he was her hero. And to those 4 kids that call him Uncle Frank. But Elliot Page, for me, just makes this movie, everything that comes out of her mouth in this, out of Libby's mouth, is a riot. And she's got this dorky, lovable, geeky energy to her that plays off of Frank. So
Libby's the better audience surrogate for us, because Libby in this movie is the character that, you're a superhero? I could be
she just dorks out at him.
Yeah.
When she starts doing karate in the living room.
The audition.
She's like, I want to show you something. And she starts doing cartwheels and somersaults.
Just out of breath. What did you think?
Libby is the best.
Yeah.
She's got a list of names.
So I would highly recommend it. Yeah, that's right. When she's trying out her different superhero names to him. And there's a lot of good geek moments in this. It is very clear that not only does James Gunn love the Outcast, but he also just loves superheroes. Yeah. And this is his tryout for being a superhero director. And it is sort of like Taxi Driver light, and it's offensive, and I love it. And I would definitely watch it again. And it's a great start to our month of gore-soaked superheroes. And so, all right. So that wraps up our discussion on Super. And it sounds like a recommend from all 3 of us, which is
a
very
rarity.
cool.
Yeah,
a rarity, yeah. So, if you haven't seen Super, it is floating around out there. I believe you can rent it on Amazon Prime.
It's worth the $2.99.
Yeah, it is.
Absolutely. Especially, like, if you're getting excited for The Boys, it is a great way to start.
It's a great primer. Yeah. So that will wrap up our episode. So again, if you'd like to check us out, don't forget you can take us on the go on Podbeam, Spotify, Stitcher, and any other podcasts like iTunes and all that good stuff that's out there. Download our buttery voices into your ears, and you can also check out our content on themisfitfaction.com, where you've got not only multiple podcasts, but you've got multiple articles on there from yours truly, who reviewed Moon Knight, and from Paul, who's been writing on various books, who I have to say, as an English teacher, I think you're a decent writer. You are pretty good. I enjoyed your stuff.
I really do enjoy writing. It's just sitting down and actually just doing it.
It is.
That's the biggest issue.
For me, it's almost a curse because it bounces around in my brain and I'm like, I need to get this out. And writing is the only way to get it out, where you just feel, you're like, oh, thank God it's not in there anymore.
And don't forget, you could also find us on social media.
Oh,
Instagram,
yes, tell us about that.
Instagram, The Misfit Faction, as well on Facebook. You have The Misfit Faction, and obviously our show, Multiverse Fan Cast, where we do our fan feedback Friday.
Oh my God, do you want to do that? Should
So
we do
let's
that?
look at Fan Feedback Friday. So this week's Fan Feedback Friday was all about how the money should be spent.
Do you think it's better for the MCU and DCEU to focus on big blockbuster movies or streaming, and why? So the reason I brought this up was, obviously we're very excited for The Boys, and The Boys works well because it is a streaming show. It is 6 episodes or whatever many episodes. But we also just had Moon Knight that we were not too crazy about. No. But then we'll have a show like Stranger Things that we're excited to binge. So I thought this was apropos, considering our lukewarm response to Moon Knight, but also our excitement to The Boys. So we have the first response was DCEU should focus more on streaming. It's had bigger successes than the MCU. I would agree with that. DC streaming has been very good. Marvel streaming has been hit or miss. Mostly hits.
Mostly hits.
Mostly
right.
hits.
Yeah. But it looks like the bubble is... I'm worried that the bubble is starting to burst.
Yeah, I think we talked about that during Moon Knight. Yeah. The MCU should focus on big blockbusters because of their success. Obviously, they are the most successful movie franchise of all time. If we are talking about what they should focus on, be more successful, it's the opposite for them. So that's interesting. DC should focus on streaming and Marvel on their big blockbusters.
I think the test for me for that will be when the Penguin series comes out on HBO.
Yeah.
Like that'll tell me, okay, do we need to stick with DC movies or television?
I'm piggybacking off of DCU. I'm watching Titans on HBO Max, and it is phenomenal.
For me, it was hit or miss with Titans. Really? There were some episodes where I'm like,
season 1 was a...
Season 1, I was actually okay up until the very, very end. Season 2 was tough for me.
So we did an episode on Titans. I think it was you and me, Rob. And after producer Melanie and I finished season 3 with Red Hood and all that.
Which got better.
Yeah, we agree that season 1 was good. Season 2 had payoff. Yeah. But it was tough getting there. Yeah, and then season 3 as a whole, I think we both really enjoyed.
I'm glad you like it.
Yeah. Let's see. From Rob's high film class, focus on the movies. There's too much to watch with the shows, and it's spreading the audience too thin. Also, shows aren't budgeted well enough and save the money for the films. I can agree to a point. Nowadays, though, you get your Disney Plus. Like, I think Elizabeth Olsen made more for WandaVision than she did for like her first 3 appearances as Wanda. Like, it's crazy to think. Like, I think she made like $50,000 or something for her first appearance, and that was in Age of Ultron and just a post credit. But she was making I think she made $7 million for WandaVision.
I have to say, my film class was unanimous on this one. They were all like, movies, because they just said there's just too much. It's saturation at this point, and it's hard to keep up. And also, they were like, some of the effects are sometimes wonky.
Yeah, very wonky. I wrote this one, I'll be honest. New characters should get movies and then get their own show. I think we loved Hawkeye. We enjoyed Loki. We liked Wanda. I think that a lot of these, but then Moon Knight, we were like, that could be a reflection of just script or whatever. But I firmly believe that if you make a movie and introduce these characters, then give them their show to flesh them out. It works just as fine. And then our friend Matt said, all I know is there's a show coming out dealing with Kite Man, and it deals with Sean Noonan's bar and probably none of the characters from that bar. So I'm actually oddly excited about Kite Man.
And again, going back to Peacemaker, it was great. And who knew? Who knew I wanted that?
And it's so different from the actual movie, which is even crazier. Do you really want to taste it?
Oh my gosh, did you notice the opening credits for Super was a dance sequence just like Peacemaker?
Yep.
It's still so good. Yeah. All right, but that's all of our Fan Feedback Friday.
So that wraps up Fan Feedback Friday. Thank you so much for joining us. Next week, we will be looking at Kick-Ass.
I am so excited. Are we doing both of them? Or
we are doing both of them.
I am even more excited.
I know. This was like a poor man's Kick-Ass.
I'll agree with that.
See, all right, I'll save my comment for next week.
Shut up.
Stay tuned.
Shut up. We'll end on that one.
Shut up. Yeah, we didn't even talk about his catchphrase.
Shut up, crime.
Shut up, crime. Which is the best catchphrase ever.
Don't molest kids.
Don't butt in line.
Shut up, crime.
So, as always, I'm Rob.
And I'm Paul.
I'm Ronnie.
And we'll be back in a flash.
Shut up, crime.
See ya.
Oh, you stole my shut up smorgasbord.